So apparently one day Richard Wagner was standing in front of the orchestra rehearsing them. They had gone through this passage, and then at some point somebody just like shouted out like, hey, like what about the trombones? And Richard Wagner, without missing a beat, apparently said, don't ever look at the trombones. It only encourages them. And I just think that that's one of the funniest trombone jokes of all time, because the trombones are just the butt of literally like all the jokes. Just seriously like look up Google trombone jokes and you'll find a million trombone jokes. But today's video is about actually why the trombones are so amazing. And I'm going to show you 3 moments in my own charts that the trombones blew my mind. Not because of what I wrote being so great, but just because of what the trombones brought to the musical table. And so we're going to be talking about like agility of the instruments, and then we're going to talk about how versatile they are in terms of what kind of stuff they can play, like stuff that you might not expect them to be able to do. And then I'm going to talk about the lush harmonic breadth of the trombone itself. And so I just want to dive right in today. This first chart that we're going to look at is an arrangement that I did for Chad Lefkowitz Brown on his album called Quarantine Standards. And this is my arrangement of Classic by Ray Noble, and this is called Cherokee. When Chad hit me up and he told me that he wanted to do this song for his album, he also said that he wanted to do it as fast as humanly possible. And if you've heard this recording, or if you know Chad, you know that he absolutely knocked this out of the park. And I just wanted to play the beginning of the arrangement so you could kind of get a sense of the vibe. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch forwards. First of all, like the form of this arrangement, we've got the melody in, then we've got a tenor solo, then we've got an alto solo, and then we've got some trading that happens. And the alto soloist is Andrew Gould, so it's Chad and Andrew trading. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the arrangement, there's not a stop, but there is a moment where they just reach this pinnacle. I'm going to play it for you right now. And the rhythm section cuts out, the soloists stop, and we just go right into an all band soli section. So that's what's about to happen. Check it out. All right, I'm going to pause it there. This is the part that I want to show you. This is the part where when I listened back and they had like sent me the recording, I was like, oh my God, I know that I wrote this and I knew that they were going to be able to play it, but I didn't like, I also had this thing in my mind. I was like, I'm not going to believe it until they actually do it. And so the first thing that I want to share with you all has to do with the agility of the trombone. A lot of people, they look at the trombone and they say to themselves, wow, like this thing is literally just a tube of metal, and the way that you change the notes is by using the slide. How can they play such fast stuff? When we talk about people like J.J. Johnson, modern masters like John Fedchock, for example, I mean, there's so many people, so many names I could have chosen. Just the 2 J's, I guess, came to my mind first. We really are able to see and hear more than see. We're able to hear just in how incredibly agile these people can be with a trombone. And so a lot of people have this misconception about the trombone that they can't play anything fast, that they have to like be paced and like, let's write whole notes for the trombone. So you can see here, this is like quarter note equals 320 or something like that. These are eighth notes, which means that they're going to be moving really, really fast. Now, the misconception here is that the trombones are not like moving around like this to play every single note to move their slide. The way that the trombone works is that I'll show you here. I'll just like zoom in on this staff real quick. I'm going to write a B flat. Okay, let me put this as a whole note just so we can like really focus on this. We're in bass clef, by the way, which is what trombones read. So they work off of the harmonic series. And so the trombones, their bottom note is actually that note right there. And Sibelius is marking it as red. Don't worry about that. Trombones can definitely play this note. This is the fundamental pitch of the trombone. And how it works is that every different partial, right? So every different like tightness of their embouchure causes them to be able to play along the harmonic series. And so the next step up is this B flat over there. Then they go up a fifth. I said fifth. Then they go up a fourth. Then they go up a third. And then they go up a minor third, right? And then they keep going up according to the harmonic series, and it becomes like imperfect. So I'm not going to really go on from there, but I'm just going to make this into an eighth note really quickly. I'm going to put it here. Now, the slide works to lower the instrument's sound by up to a tritone. Because it's a slide and not buttons, we get all the notes in between the notes as well. That's how we're able to get those really human vocal qualities out of the trombone. And in regard to how they're able to play this section of music so quickly, it has to do with the fact that these notes over here are able to be played by a couple of different partials, right? They're able to play, for example, this C natural right here. They could play that by moving their slide down from that partial or from that partial. Okay, and I'm not saying which one is better. I'm just saying that there are multiple possibilities. And so even though this passage is moving so quickly, the trombones don't necessarily have to move their slide around like a crazy person in order to achieve the soundscape that we're going for here. And so that's really the first thing, is just on the agility of the trombones. Okay, and it just blew my mind, truly blew my mind when I heard this recording. Every time I hear it, actually, just like, wow, they can play this and it sounds so clean. It's pretty amazing. Now, I also want to shout out just a quick orchestrational tool that I used, which was to put the trumpets an octave above the trombones, and that helps the trombones speak more, and vice versa, the trombones add weight to the trumpets in this register, and so they're playing unison. It's just a really, really exciting musical moment. All right, so next up, we're going to be talking about the versatility of the trombones and how you can use them in order to get sounds out of the ensemble from the trombones that you might not have expected that you were able to. Once you understand these principles, you can then go and apply them also to writing for trombones in other situations as well, whether it's symphony orchestras, pop orchestras, even like pop horn writing. Because once you understand the fundamentals, you can then go and apply them however you want so that you can write the music that you feel in your heart that you want to share with the world. And on that note, for any jazz musicians, or really any musicians out there of any level who want to write for big band with more speed, intentionality, and authenticity than you are able to right now, I did recently create a free masterclass where I break down my secret formula to write an award-winning big band chart in 24 hours or less without experiencing writer's block. And I'm going to put a link to that masterclass in the video description below. But for now, let's get back to talking about the trombones, and let's get into the versatility of the trombone section, playing sounds that you might not have expected them to be able to play. This next chart that we're going to be going over is actually one of the first charts that I ever wrote for big band on I've Got the World on a String. All right, you know what? Let me skip ahead to the section that I actually want to show you guys. This is a 16 measure trombone solo. Blink and you'll miss it. Check it out. This 16 measure trombone solo, first of all, when I wrote this, I actually had no idea truly how hard the music that I wrote was. That's Nick Finzer playing lead trombone on this, and he absolutely knocked it out of the park. He crushed this solo. Part of the reason why this is so difficult is that when I first wrote this, I just didn't understand really the fundamental nature of the trombone. And so there are some notes here, even though this is at a medium tempo in this music, that are really, really high up. And you can kind of like see them on the score here. Like immediately Sibelius is like telling me like, no, this is too high. This note, by the way, this D flat, it's not too high. It's definitely very, very high, but it's about a half step below the highest note that is technically like written range for the instrument without having somebody like Nick to bring it to life. Challenges aside, this music is written as though it's actually kind of a saxophone solo, but for the trombones. And so you might not have thought about doing this before, but instead of writing a saxophone solo in one of your charts, why not write a trombone solo? It's got that weighty, beautiful, brassy nature to it. You can get kind of like a little bit different of a sound in your chart if you do this. It's just another color, another texture that you can use. And if you've kind of gotten saxophone solos under your fingers, the same sort of writing principles apply to the trombones as well. Obviously, you have to be a little bit more careful because even though we just talked about the agility of the trombones, if you put them up against the saxophone can usually 9 times out of 10 play faster than a trombone. That's probably why there are fewer trombone solos out there, but let there be no mistake, the trombones can absolutely crush a solo. And so you'll notice here that this music is written in closed position voicings for pretty much all of the notes here. And I'll just play a little bit of the Sibelius file so you can see and hear as I'm going along here. This first chord, it's a diminished approach. Here we go. Right, so just take these first 5 notes, for example. You can hear that the notes are very close together. It's bebop language. The notes of the harmony are all within the span of a single octave. And the trombones are just only too happy to play the music when it's written like this. One of the things that makes this passage a little bit harder on the flip side is that some music here that's written in a way that's suboptimal. So for example, like this little moment right here. Right, this is basically a turn. And so again, this was one of my first charts. I kind of wrote a successful chart in my personal opinion by accident. I'm very happy to have done so, but nevertheless, there are things in here that I didn't know I was doing right and B didn't know I was doing wrong. And this right here, it's a moment where I didn't understand that I was doing something wrong. This should actually be written, I'll show you exactly how. This should be written as a quarter note, and I should use what's called a turn symbol just above, like so. And all of the instruments here in this passage should be written the same way as this right here. They'll instinctively know what to do with this, or the lead trombonist will say to the rest of the section, here's how I want to interpret the turn, can you do this with me? And they'll either do it with their mouth, or they'll do it with the slide, or a combination thereof. Just for now, since I've got this score up, I want you to check something out. What happens if I just go and copy and paste this into the saxophones, just for this first little passage here? So I'm just going to select this. I'll copy it into the saxophones. It's, not in the perfect range for them, but it's fine. This is just a, really, really easy way of writing it for the saxophones, just doubling the bari down an octave for the lead alto. I'm just going to add a little mezzo forte so that they're all playing, quote unquote, Sibelius is all playing the same dynamic, and check it out. I mean, you can really hear and see when I write it out like this, just how similar these writing styles are, okay? And so I don't want to spend too long on this because it's really quite a simple point at the end of the day. Trombones don't just have to play pads. They don't just have to play comping figures. They can really take on beautiful soli moments, and they'll sound great if you write it the right way as well. Okay, so that's number 2, the versatility of the trombones. All right, so last but not least for today, I want to touch on the absolute beautiful harmonic lushness of the trombones. And I want to show you that by actually asking you a question, which is to think to yourself, what happens when we remove the trombones from the music? What happens to the warmth of the music? What happens to the lushness? What happens to the overall soundscape in your ears? We're just going to listen to one chorus of an arrangement that I wrote on Remember Me, which is from the movie Coco. And it wasn't until I figured out how to write for the trombones that my music really started to come alive. And that is because the trombones, just by nature of where their natural register is, where it falls on the frequency spectrum, they basically carry the meat of the harmony. Without the trombone section, we're missing out on the part of the frequency spectrum that actually makes us feel warm. Right? Because music makes us feel stuff. When it's written from that authentic, beautiful place that is like truly each one of all of us and our expression of the music in that regard, we can express something that is really beautiful, for lack of a better way of saying it. And the trombones have a huge role to play in that. So this is Remember Me. at this point, hopefully that question that I asked is driving some ideas, which is what happens when we actually like remove the trombones from the music? What happens to the warmth that we're experiencing? This arrangement, I'm just going to go back to the Sibelius screen for a quick second here. This arrangement, first of all, like for the harmony that we've been discussing that the trombones can play, from the very first note of this arrangement, we can hear and see something very, very clearly, which is, on Cherokee, they were in unison playing really quickly. On I've Got the World on a String, they were playing bebop, almost saxophone solo type figures in four-way closed harmony. Now we have a piece of harmony that is spread. This top note to the bottom note is more than an octave. It's almost 2 octaves from top to bottom. This B flat to F is a octave plus a fifth, for example, right? And so the harmony in the middle becomes the harmony that makes or breaks the warmth. Part of the warmth here comes from the structure of the harmony. At first it's in fourths, right? F down to C, that's a perfect fourth. C down to G, that's a perfect fourth as well. This G down to an A is a major 9, which is a very warm interval. Right, it's a major second, but spread apart like that. This first chord, it's very warm. Listen to this. Right, on its own, it's beautiful. Second thing that happens immediately is that the music steps up by a diatonic second. The A goes into a B flat, the G goes into an A, the C goes into a D, and the F actually pedals, right? So pedal tone, not just for the bass. Sometimes we hear the word pedal tone, and we're thinking almost like McCoy Tyner, like dropping that big like boom, bop, ba, and then like having his pentatonic lines going on top, like boom, bop, ba, be do be da do do be do dee da bo bo dee da do be da da pop. Right? We think of that low note in the left hand and the bass register as a pedal, but the truth is that we can also have a pedal in the top voice or in the middle for that matter. It's just a note that is constant over the course of X amount of time. And in this context, we've got it on the root of the song, which is in F major, right? So all the other notes are kind of being compared to this one note. That's the power of the pedal tone in a nutshell. And so we've basically got these guide tones in the lower 3 voices, which are stepping up like so. Check it out. When we add on that F on top, we get that added warmth. First, it has something to do with the music that is being written. The trombones, or any instrument for that matter, when you write them out for the ensemble, they're only going to play what you write. So you can't say, okay, you know what, let me write some random notes for the trombones and we'll see what happens. It's just going to make it warm automatically, right? Not the case. In the case of the trombone, the beauty is that they are in that perfect warm register already. And so if you put the warm stuff that you might hear on a piano, on a guitar, or I don't want to sound corny, but in your heart, and you write it in the trombone section, you're going to almost automatically get that warm sound. So one more part of this arrangement that I want to show is the trombones just switch out of playing as a section just on their own, and they play a supportive role with the rest of the brass section with the trumpets. So in this sense, they're adding warmth to the trumpets. Here are the trumpets on their own. Fine. They sound fine. Adding in the trombones, and we get the power, the warmth, that lush nature of the music that we might be looking for in a moment such as this one. Let's just talk about this target chord right here. This chord I would call B flat 6, 9, right? Because I've got that 6 there and I've got the 9 there, and those are almost acting in the same way that we might have a third and a seventh. Check it out. G to C is a perfect fourth. C to F is a perfect fourth. And now orchestrationally, I've got the trumpet, the head trumpet, not the lead trumpet, but like the head of this voicing on the same note actually as trombone 1. And then I've got a D natural in here that's communicating that major third of the chord symbol. So that's spelling out a beautiful 10th. It's a little more than a 10th, but it's fine. It's basically a 10th. That's very harmonious. When I add in the other notes, then we get that 13 or the 6, then we get the 9, then we get the 5, and we add those other notes as well. The trombones really do have the ability to play so warm, so lush, so beautiful, and add that weight to your music that, quite honestly, like without the trombones written in that correct register in that beautiful way, you're gonna find it difficult, not impossible, but difficult to get the same sense of warmth out of your music. So that's it for today, folks. If it was helpful to you, if you took away even just like the smallest bit of information that's gonna help you in your musical journey, please do consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Turning on the notifications also is a good way to make sure that you don't miss a video. And I'm really enjoying making these videos for you. So if there's something that you want to see that I haven't yet made for you, please leave a comment below. Tell me what you'd like me to talk about, because I want to make sure that I'm helping you as much as possible. Thanks again so much for checking out today's video, and I will see you all very soon. Ciao.